Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, we're going to chat about topics that have an impact on all of us. First, we're going to deal with financial exploitation and how significant that is, and then we'll get to clean, high-quality water, and we'll do that after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, topics that have an impact on all of us regularly, virtually every day. Joining me to do that is Rick Patel. He's the president and CEO of Diamond Credit Union. And Patrick Conway, he's the president and CEO of CrossState Credit Union Association. All right, Patrick, I'm going to start with you. Let's start out with what is financial exploitation?
Sure, Terry. Basically, it's the theft or misuse of assets, and it's the most prevalent form of elder abuse, and it's a growing problem in our society.
That's right.
And so some of our older citizens are just susceptible to that sort of abuse, and it's a growing problem across the country, really, in all of our communities.
All right, let me turn to you and then say,
okay.
It's a threat. According to AARP, it's
yes.
a financial exploitation. It's a significant threat to older Americans, their families, and their financial institutions.
Yeah, it is. And the threat is real. For example, it costs the financial institutions about $1 billion a year. That's how significant the impact is. On average, a victim, it's costing them $120,000 of their total wealth, which is almost what a person saves in a given year. To further escalate that, it impacts the caretakers who are taking care of these elderly. It's impacting them by $36,000.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of impact for our elderly population around this.
And there are specific types of financial exploitation, correct?
Yes, it can run the gamut from theft of funds to misuse of assets, can come in the form of different types of fraud. Sometimes seniors will get a phone call and people will claim certain things and ask for certain information.
Investment fraud, yep.
Exactly. So it's a growing problem. As the population ages and people are living longer, they're
more
frankly
susceptible.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's certainly true. All right, there are a few trending senior financial scams,
yes.
and there are tips to avoid becoming a victim. Take it.
Yeah, there's two main ones that I can think of. The first one is the grandfather scams, or grandmother scams, so grandparents,
yeah.
grandparents in general. Grandparents would, for example, get a call from somebody claiming that they or a law enforcement official of sorts, they have detained their grandchild, and they want the grandparent to send them funds, monies. It's almost of an emotional exploitation of sorts.
Yeah.
Usually grandparents love their grandkids, and they will do anything. And so what these fraudsters do is they create this sense of urgency.
Urgency, right.
And grandparents are just caught up in that, and they end up sending the money. So that is one of the main ones. Now, how do you avoid that? The first thing is not to act immediately. Asking the person questions, and as well as just informing loved ones that this is going on, what should we do?
Yeah.
So simple steps like that, like those, really protect with these grandparent schemes or scams.
Right.
The other one is romance scams, in the age of social media and online.
Before we get to that,
sure.
Just a follow-up. I'll tell you what I do. I don't deal with anyone on the phone that immediately appears to be trying to sell me something. I immediately get off the phone, and I will contact someone else.
That's right.
And that's a smart move, Terry.
Exactly.
You know, call a phone number you're familiar with, so that the loved one or the family member that is being claimed to be in some, you know, in some harmful situation, you can find out directly by calling them. You know, if you don't know the individual on the other end of the phone, you don't need to talk to them.
Right. And I don't. I think I just get off the phone immediately. That's not the way I'm going to deal with someone. And we're going to run to a break. This is one that I can't believe exists. Yes, I can, but it's called romance scam.
Yes.
We'll run to a break, and we'll talk about that when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right. Well, I'll tell you something, Patrick Conway. This is an important one, and I'm sure it affects a lot of people. And you refer to it as romance scams.
Yes. You know, believe it or not, it's one of the more common or prevalent examples of elder abuse and financial fraud, where someone will contact a senior and shower them with attention. Usually it's online in some sort of a format like that, and then ask for money or for personal information that can lead to accessing their assets. And so it's a growing concern. And, you know, many of our senior citizens are susceptible to this, particularly those that may struggle with dementia as they've aged.
And there are things you can do to protect yourself, right?
Yes, as you said earlier, for one, you know, if you don't know the individual that's on the other end of the conversation, there's no need to talk to them. Absolutely, absolutely.
That's right.
There's unfortunately a lot of bad actors.
Are these becoming more common?
I think so. Again, as the population is growing in age, the aging population, it's a more prevalent problem.
Yeah.
All right. Now, financial institutions now have programs to protect seniors. Is that correct?
Yes. They do.
Well, talk about them.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that the credit unions are doing to protect seniors. So, for example, we have prepaid cards where funds can be loaded onto a card, and then the cards can be used for purchase transactions and so forth. Even if something happens, then you're protected by that amount, and they're reloadable, so it just makes it easier. A couple other things: high visibility of debit cards, which has a color contrast, so it's a high dense color contrast, so folks can look at it and realize that, okay, this is my debit card and I can use it for whatever purchases. There's things like biometric fingerprinting to protect cards, and as well as, you know, one of the other things is improving processes, for example, power of attorneys, taking care of those. Now, as a credit union, there are several things that are also promising that we're looking for or are working at. The first piece is data analytics, using data to protect the consumers. Also having features like read-only features. So if a family member can be given access for read-only, so they can look over these options and but not necessarily use if the elderly person wants that.
Right.
And then having a customer or member needs forms. Now, here at Diamond, we take that very seriously. And the main thing that we're doing is training our staff. Training our staff to identify red flags and provide the right support to all of our membership.
And a lot of this financial exploitation takes place among elderly people, correct?
It does. It does. And again, it's a growing problem, I think, across the country, certainly in all of our communities. And as Rick was saying, you know, consumers, if they have a trusted relationship with their financial institution,
That's
right. many credit unions care about their members, community banks as well, you know, but if you've got a good, trustful relationship with your financial institution, they can help you. And the other thing you can do is really rely on a loved one, a trusted contact to help you with your banking needs, to ensure that, you know, that you're not being taken advantage of. And that's another thing that we advise consumers to consider as well.
Well, I'll tell you, this has been a great update. I want to thank you for coming in and talking about that. And we really do have to be careful, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
And a lot of people aren't careful, which is why these scams are working.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to run to a break, and when we come back, let's talk a little bit about another important topic, financial exploitation. Do not get financially exploited. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by CrossState Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, welcome back. Well, we covered financial exploitation. We're now going to talk about something that is significant. It's important to all of us. It's clean water quality. And to do that, we have Justin Ladner. He's the president of Pennsylvania American Water. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Terry. It's wonderful to be here.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, we have a lot to talk about, and this is one of the most significant topics that we could talk about because of our use of water. So, clean, high-quality water, what does that mean?
Sure, Terry. You're right how critical this is. Water's the one utility that we ingest, and we can't survive without it. So the EPA at the federal level is very focused on making sure for public health that the water is safe, and they've got around 90 contaminants that all water providers must make sure that they're treating the water to be below whatever those contaminant levels are.
90?
Correct.
That's a big job, isn't it?
It's a big job, but you know, the challenge is ever increasing because there's, you know, upwards of 80,000 chemicals out there, and that's kind of this future challenge that we're all trying to make sure that we comply with.
Yeah. So when we talk about clean, high-quality water, that is something that folks like you and who monitor all of this and the folks who are involved in this have to do literally every day. It's not something that you can just let go by, right?
You're right. There's no autopilot, and at Pennsylvania American Water, where I have the responsibility for all our customers, you know, we're the largest provider in Pennsylvania, and you know, over 2.3 million people are relying upon us to keep our eye on the ball. Wow.
So, well, let's specifically talk about our state. We have a very large, complex state. We have a lot of the Appalachian Mountains run through a significant part of our state. We have urban areas, we have rural areas, we have significant farmland. We're a complicated, diverse state. So what's the water situation in Pennsylvania like?
You're so right, Terry, and no one knows the state more than you and kind of the time that you've spent here talking to different people. Me being here for a year and a half, I'm learning all those things you said because our service territory at Pennsylvania American Water, we're all over the state, and the different characteristics you mentioned, the geographical diversity of the Northeast, the Poconos to the Southwest around Pittsburgh, you know, we have service territories in all of those areas, and they all present different challenges. To your point, when you talk about clean water, you know, out west you've got a supply challenge. You know, you hear a lot about drought. We're not immune to that here as well, but clean water is always a challenge here because of the history of the Northeast in terms of manufacturing, industrial.
The complexity of our geography makes it so, right? I mean, look,
Absolutely, and you talked about kind of mountainous terrain, and one of the challenges with water is it weighs a lot, and we got to get it up and down mountains, through mountains, and that's a lot of energy cost. But that can also result in what we call main breaks and things like that. So now you got water that's not getting to the end customer, which hurts your treatment costs and construction inconvenience. Yeah, it's a tough challenge.
Are there many organizations that are responsible for ensuring that we have clean water?
There are. You know, you've got your environmental regulator that really is at the forefront, and I mentioned EPA at the national level, but what that means in Pennsylvania is PADEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. They're really the enforcement group, if you will. We view them as a partner, but they're making sure that our permits, all of our tests, we have over 1,000 permits at Pennsylvania American Water. They're enforcing our compliance to make sure that we're safe.
Yeah. Well, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about a study done by American Water in some detail, because this is truly significant. I mean, as you accurately point out, this is something that we can't survive without. There are no options when it comes to water. And we'll run to a break, and we'll get to that when we come back.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
All right, we're chatting about the significance of water and its importance to everyone, but obviously in our state where municipalities are involved in selling water and waste systems. I'm going to talk with Justin Ladner. He's the president of Pennsylvania American Water. We're going to get into that and more. Go ahead.
Sure, Terry.
Municipalities are heavily involved in this, correct?
They are. So when you think about your electricity and your gas, it is not a consolidated industry in terms of water, meaning there are over 1,800 community water systems in the state of Pennsylvania. By comparison,
say that again. 1,800.
And
is there someone regulating them?
So they're private regulated, our water systems are regulated by the Public Utility Commission.
Okay,
now,
go ahead.
The environmental regulates everybody, but that is a difference in terms of, I would say, enforcement. But by comparison, you're looking at your electrical providers, there's 11 of those in the state, so 1,800 versus 11. Why do I talk about that? Because there's a need for consolidation and regionalization to ensure adequate compliance and performance on a consistent measure. And the state of Pennsylvania was a leader in that regard, where in 2016, they decided to pass legislation trying to incent some of that consolidation. And when I say incent, what they were doing is just saying that these municipalities, if they voluntarily decided that they no longer wanted to be in the business of water or wastewater, that they could get a fair value for their system. And there's a lot of technical appraisal language there, but the bottom line is, taxpayers want to get a fair value for their system, and this law and the legislation allowed for that.
So is the selling of water companies very common these days?
Common's a strong word. I think in the state of Pennsylvania, there's more of that activity than other states in the country. I think Pennsylvania's a leader in that regard. But when you talk about 1,800, we're in 47 communities, and we're the largest provider. I wouldn't say it's commonplace. Since 2016, you're looking at maybe 20 or so transactions.
Wow, yeah.
Because they're very lengthy, they're very, rigorous in terms of applications and reviews.
So the Environmental Protection Department has asked the courts to approve a takeover after customers reported years of unsafe and reliable water.
They did, and when I talk about 1,800, I keep going back to that because that's a full spectrum in terms of, I would say, responsible water providers. And you've got plenty of small, rural municipalities that can be high functioning, but the truth is there are a lot that are not. And what you just referenced is that in 2024, it's unbelievable to think that that can happen. What I mean by that happening is East Dunkard Water Authority, 75-minute drive south of Pittsburgh, they were without water for several days. They were in boil water order condition for several weeks. And what that means is they couldn't consume the water. They didn't even have water. And it was very discolored. And that's not okay.
Yeah.
Our Constitution says clearly Pennsylvanians are entitled to clean, safe water, like you said to start us off. And so the environmental regulator stepped in and said, somebody come here and save this system, and Pennsylvania American Water is the entity doing that.
And private water companies just don't acquire well-run systems, correct?
You're absolutely right, and that's a myth that's out there, and I've got several examples. I mentioned roughly 20 acquisitions since this law came into being. Wastewater is one example. The McKeesport Wastewater Authority, Pennsylvania American Water acquired them. They had raw sewage running directly into abandoned mines, not even making it to the treatment facility.
Wow.
They were a system that was in Act 47 municipal bankruptcy here in Pennsylvania. I can go to another example in Exeter Township in Berks County, where before we took over, on one event, Terry, 4 million gallons of raw sewer was discharged into the Schuylkill River. And we're not even talking about a weather event, so this was highly concentrated sewage. That's not a well-run system. That's a troubled system. And to fix those things, it requires significant investment, which has a cost to it.
And we don't normally think much about this, at least I don't. I don't know that our viewers do or do not, but one of the things is that we need infrastructure investments on a regular basis.
We absolutely do. And, people are tired of me using this example, but think about when you go to the dentist. Okay, you can either go to the dentist for regular checkups, and then you maintain pretty good health. Usually there's not a big surprise, or you can skip the checkups and say I'm fine, and then all of a sudden you bite into an almond one day, and it's expensive, and it also hurts. It's the same thing with water.
I'm a good boy. I do my regular checkups.
Good. It will. Hopefully you see the benefit in your health and your wallet.
Yeah.
But water and wastewater is out of sight, out of mind, and so there's a tendency to really defer the maintenance, whether it's to try and mitigate rate increases for municipalities, whatever it may be. But as we mentioned at the top, that's my sole responsibility, and we do not do that. If you had to give a grade to our water system, what would you do? What grade would you give? Continuous improvement, excellent standard. I'd give us, an A-. There's always room to improve. But since you say that, the American Society of Civil Engineers graded Pennsylvania as a state D and D-, water, wastewater. Yeah. Not okay in this day and age. Yeah. We want to be a solution provider. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming in. This has been a great update. All right. Thanks for watching the program. As always, we appreciate your watching. Thank you.